Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the series in which I attempt to stave off lunacy by watching strange and interesting presentations from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, the Pepperjack, and you, dear viewers. Once again, we dive headfirst into mystery and adventure. That's what this is. Mystery and adventure. That's what I offer. That's all I've got. To break up the monotony of each day that goes by like a blur in this pandemic, which is Groundhog Day in real life. So how are you guys doing? Welcome to Thursday. If this is Thursday for you. Could be another day, I suppose. But they all kind of seem the same these days. Hello, everyone. Jaeger Pony, hello. Robbie Schroeder, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Death Glock, hello. John Miller, hello. Eric Grunstadter, hello. Humble Clay, hello. Gulf City, Johnny Blaze, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. Raymond Lewis, hello. And that's it. That's all. At least for the moment. I suppose somebody else could show up. Oh, Jim Beam, hello. Chicago Mike, hello. I'll do more hellos as time goes on here. But what is the wonderful world we find ourselves in today? Well, guys, the official title of this presentation is Breaking Our Culture's Addiction to Conflict. Breaking Our Culture's Addiction to Conflict. All right, which presupposes that our culture, whichever one that is addicted to conflict, and thus is an addiction we have to break. So, looking forward to that. Thank you, Rudicus Prime. Good afternoon, Scribe. Good afternoon, Rudicus. Spider-Man, hello. Cryptic, hello. The Useless Rebel, hello. Greg Rogers, hello. Mr. Hugh, hello. Zauble, hello. Chicago Mike, I already said hello to. You got twice. Well, you know, double dipping. Quinn the Cultist, hello. All right, so, Irate Prostate, hello. That one Servant of Satania, hello. Hello, all. All right, well, let's get into it. Per usual, I will start off with a couple seconds for sound check. Ms. Slim 1, hello. And you guys tell me if you can hear this. And by the way, I haven't watched this, except for sound testing, but I love how they've inserted a audience applause sound, even though this guy is sitting alone in a room. So there you go.
This is a story about the end of the world.
Oh, I was hoping it was a story about a man named Jed. Poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. Then one day he was shooting up some crude and up through the ground come a bubbling groove. I screwed that up, but whatever. You guys hear that? Pepperjack. You my only friend. Johnny Hellcat, hello. Maniac Man 2030, hello. Spittlebuggy, hello. Becca Fairley, hello. Emerald, hello. One Ton Hammer, hello. Subpar Genitalia, hello. The Dead Kaiser, hello. Uzi Q, hello. And I think that's everybody. Okay. Well then, guys, here we go. This is a story. Let's hear a story.
For thousands of years, cultures and religions have told us the end was coming. And we're still predicting it. But now joined by apocalyptic-based news and entertainment industries that increasingly profit by showing us all the ways the world will end through movies and television, books, and video games.
Oh boy, is this going to be an anti-video game screed? Or we need to take violence out of our media? Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. Black Gold, Texas Tea. Yes. Beverly Hillbillies. But anyway, guys, so yeah, we have a problem with apocalyptic imagery and stories and notions about everything, and it's infecting our media. All right, so tell me about how we're going to cure that during a pandemic.
Or just by showing us what's happening in the real world.
Right. So both in media and fiction and the real world, with people telling you the reality of a situation, we have quote unquote tales of the end of the world. Sure. That's been going on since the beginning of time. All right.
Now, for over 20 years, I've investigated human trafficking across the globe.
That was a jump. Okay, so apocalyptic imagery and storytelling to human trafficking. I feel like I missed 30 minutes of a talk or something.
And in that time, and collaborating with others, we found an enormous amount of child abuse images on Facebook. Now think of it, for the first time in history, pedophiles didn't need to hide what they were doing.
Okay, well, I will agree that that has become more and more of a problem with people trying to normalize pedophilia. I will not disagree with that notion.
Across language barriers, across borders, across the world, these people were gathering on Facebook, validating each other, enabling each other, and trading images and videos of children being attacked.
Yes, and it's terrible, and I agree. So I'm in your corner on this one, TEDx speaker.
Which is all a form of human trafficking. Now, in reporting all this to law enforcement, I had a front row seat. And because of this work, I've seen the end of the world for thousands of children through images of destroyed lives.
Oh, okay.
Images that I have to live with.
Yeah.
So I decided to do something.
Okay.
Because I think the end of the world, especially the world of children, is really something we should avoid.
Okay.
So whether through theological forecasts from long ago or through the new religions of electronic entertainment, we've taken the stories of the end of the world and gobbled them up like a chocolate eclair.
Okay. And what is he quoting here? How do you think people responded to the prospect of imminent doom? They gobbled it up like a chocolate eclair. They didn't fear their demise. They repackaged it. It can be enjoyed as video games, as TV shows, as books, movies. The entire world wholeheartedly embraced the apocalypse and sprinted toward it with gleeful abandon. Hugh Laurie, Nix, Tomorrowland, copyright Disney. Okay, so we've gone from tales of the end of the world to human trafficking as a metaphor for the end of the world for individual victims. And now, okay, not even 2 minutes in, and I don't know where we're going.
And in the past 70 years or so, for the first time, we can make it happen. We don't need a deity. We don't need aliens or another comet. With nuclear or bioweapons, the choice to end the world is ours.
The choice to end the world has been ours since Trinity, more or less. I mean, Cuban Missile Crisis, we've had the ability, the great nations of the world, to destroy ourselves 1 million times over for quite a while, not just the last 20 years or something.
And like never before, this Armageddon option is on the table as a viable solution to resolving conflict.
You're going to have to tell me who believes that to be the case, because aside from insane religious zealots, I would say, most sane world leaders understand the concept of MAD, mutually assured destruction. I mean, setting us, well, I don't know if the North Korean regime is a religious zealot per se, but they do believe in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit of their dead leaders. So, as Christopher Hitchens called it, it was a necrocracy or a mausolocracy or something, whatever.
Imagine how living in that shadow of death has made all our other conflicts pale in comparison.
We don't. I mean, if you lived during the Cold War, and I was alive just at the tail end of it, so to speak, Yeah, you lived under the shadow of potential nuclear Armageddon for most of your life. That didn't make other conflicts seem irrelevant. Like Vietnam didn't suddenly become no big deal because there was also the threat of nuclear war. Okay. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Scribe, is it me or does every TED Talk seem to go all over the place and make no sense whatsoever? I've seen reasoned TED Talks before, even ones I didn't agree with. I've seen TED Talks that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a decently constructed narrative. I've seen those. They're not uncommon, but I guess I just luck out in the ones that I pick for this show because...
Imagine what that has done to our humanity, to our global village of ideas and innovation.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the rise of humanity over the last, say, I don't know, 40, almost 60 years now. Let's start at the Cuban Missile Crisis, okay? When we really, and if you pay attention to the history of that incident, we really did come right to the brink of nuclear annihilation. Let's start from there and go forward. How has the threat of Armageddon, destruction, end of the world, affected our humanity? Science has progressed. Gay marriage is legal. Pot is almost legal. We're in a better place now as a country, as a culture, than we were, say, back in the 60s. If you want to talk about equal rights and civil rights and equality and advancement of information and so on and so on. So under the cloud of potential Armageddon, here we are, rock us like a hurricane.
With the world ending, why should we seek resolution? Why should we cooperate with each other? Why should we collaborate or compromise?
Unlike you, most of us don't believe that we're on the brink of the end of the world.
Or show compassion. If it weren't for a few glimmers of hope, it seems we've simply given up and turned our backs on the better angels of our nature.
Really? I'm dying to know what the few glimmers of hope are at this point.
It's clear we live in a culture of conflict, led by the adversarial industrial complex.
The adversarial industrial complex. Okay, and I'm going to make a blanket statement here that may or may not apply to the rest of this talk, because, again, I haven't listened to it, but we need conflict. We need an adversarial system to a certain degree. We need to have a clashing of ideas and opinions, because here's the thing, for the most part, unless you're getting down to like mathematics or something, no one's individual opinion is necessarily the whole truth of the matter. I mean, let's think about the legal system for a second. The necessary function of an adversarial legal system, the defense and the prosecution, the burden of the proof on the state versus the presumed innocence of the defendant. Let's talk about our governmental system. As gridlocked as it can be, the fact that there is a two-party system, more or less, is to try to strike a balance, that no one ideology is going to rule over everything else. Conflict, dissent, disagreement is a necessary component of human evolution. But I might digress. Thank you, Cryptic. Lots of doomsday porn on the internet these days. Man, how many Fallout games can they make, right? And thank you, Johnny Hellcat. Since we're earworming, yes, why should we stop, collaborate, and listen? If you got a problem, I'll solve it. Check out the beat while the DJ revolves it. But I digress.
That profits from a violent culture that no longer seeks solutions to the enormous challenges facing us.
Yeah, we're just living in hell right now, aren't we? Well, I mean, some of us are, unfortunately. But he's talking in broader strokes than the current environment, I think.
This new industry, built on all forms of conflict, seeks to continually increase the shouting, the fighting, and the arguing.
Oh, you're talking about Twitter. Got it.
It's a cacophony of conflict that gets higher ratings and more votes, makes more money, creates more followers, and most of all, makes us feel really good when we get into an endless argument on social media.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about people. I mean, let's be honest, guys. Social media did not make people into adversarial beings. It gave human beings more outlets to be adversarial. Chicken and egg. Chicken and egg.
And that's when we completely lose our motivation for coming to agreement.
Really? Really? Okay. Do tell.
Through every form of communication, the adversarial industrial complex produces bitter conflict at higher levels all the time with no end. It's like an addiction. And we, the addicts, always need a bigger dose to feel satisfied.
Okay, I'm gonna try to stipulate to something here just for a moment. Okay. Yes, getting into an internet fight, trying to get the gotcha moment, trying to come up with the next meme that totally burns someone. Yes, it is a status symbol. It is now something of an addiction. Watching the fires go on through Twitter or otherwise. I mean, I first experienced that with social media by watching, but not really participating, in Gamergate, by watching the rollout of events on Twitter during that time. I just tracked what was going on. I didn't even have an account. But that's where it was happening in real time, and it was really fun to watch. It was a real-time soap opera. It's entertaining. And yes, our version of entertainment and our engagement with one another has changed drastically because of social media. But at the core, we're all still people. We're all still humans, and all of these things are simply outgrowths of already naturally occurring habits within us to try to understand things, to try to engage, to try to be part of something. It's a lot easier to feel a part of something these days if you get on board with the easy memes, or something that feels like you're part of a cause. Hashtag Coney 2012 or whatever. That kind of thing. It's nothing new at its core. It's just a new way of expressing it. But yes, we do have a problem with conflict and seeing people as enemies simply for disagreement. That I will agree with. If that's what he's getting at in some way, shape, or form, I will agree with it. That a simple disagreement thus makes someone an enemy, which, by the way, is what bigotry is. Just if we're talking definitions. So, sure, there is an increase, I think, in bigotry amongst the social media set. All right. To that, I will stipulate, not knowing where he's going.
These cultural conglomerates are always there, like our eager dealers, doling out a stronger fix every hour of the day.
Okay, so your problem is with the social media companies and the media industry at all right now, who are, giving the people what they want and encouraging the kind of behavior that gets them clicks and money. Yes, it's true. It's true. The media is reinforcing some of the worst habits among us, which is not new.
And like the global heroin supply, the conflict drug is more addictive today than ever before.
The heroin supply. Okay.
But conflict is a corruption of ideas.
No, conflict is the intersection of ideas. Conflict is not inherently the corruption of ideas. Conflict is two ideas contradicting one another or coming to loggerheads for some reason. It's not corruption. It's just, clashing, let's say.
It pollutes the imagination.
No, not necessarily. If my idea conflicts with someone else and I listen to their idea and it somehow either reinforces my own or modifies my own thinking about the world based on this new information, it's good. It's not inherently bad. Conflict is not inherently bad. If that's the place you're coming from, I'm sorry, I fundamentally disagree with you.
It bypasses kindness, igniting flames of hatred, intolerance, and violence.
Only in the very worst examples of it. Without conflict, there would be no humankind. Without evolution, we wouldn't be here. And evolution is a result of conflict, of difficulty, of coming up against an obstacle and trying to overcome it. And those that do evolve. Those that don't fall behind.
Within seconds of experiencing conflict, the stress it brings releases adrenaline and cortisol into your body as if you were actually in danger. And this isn't new. It's mostly a defense mechanism and survival mechanism. We evolved in conflict, in fear, and in a survival mode.
And you just admitted to it. I mean, you're highlighting the worst aspects of it, but yes, when it comes down to the bare facts of primal evolution, danger, obstacle, survival, so on, fear, sure, these things were conflicts that had to be overcome, and we evolved to overcome them. Right? Were the civil rights marches and those against the civil rights movement not a conflict? Though that was a conflict, was it not? Was it a conflict that we should have avoided? Was that a conflict that should have been just set aside? Or was it a necessary meeting of the minds of two trains of thought in this world that needed to be in conflict in order to promote a change, a good change for society and our laws? I mean, all conflict is bad. You just told us we evolved because of conflict.
Until only recently, we had to spend every moment of every day thinking about survival.
Until recently? I don't know what tax bracket you're in, but people are still thinking about survival to this moment and before the pandemic.
Finding enough food, finding shelter, avoiding getting eaten by something or attacked by other humans.
Oh yeah, all of those concerns, yeah, those have totally left us at this point. What are you talking about?
For thousands of years, as our brains developed, we became wired for a lifelong fight for survival.
Yeah, that's how our brains developed, by solving problems, i.e., facing conflicts.
Now, is it possible that we still have our ancestors' mode of thinking lurking within us?
Oh, is it possible that we're still brainless Neanderthals? Sure, do tell.
That we're still expecting those life or death conflicts every day?
That we still have some very, very deep hard wiring in our instincts and our reactions? Yes, I will grant you that. It's true. Some things never change, like our DNA.
That we think we need to keep running, even though nothing's chasing us. The question is, are we stuck here in this addiction to conflict?
It's not an addiction to conflict. Conflict is a necessary part and an inevitable part of living. Being alive is conflict. Every breath you take is a conflict between getting the oxygen you need to survive and not getting the oxygen you need to survive. I mean, okay, there's only so many different ways I guess I can say the same thing, but I'm waiting for him.
So we started reporting these abusive images of children on Facebook directly to law enforcement.
Good. I am glad that you did. No, I'm not being facetious at all. Completely sincere. I am glad that you did.
And there were thousands of them. Facebook didn't like that. They told me I should report the images directly to them and only to them. Now, these images were clearly criminal.
Okay, so you ended up in a conflict with Facebook. And if that was actually their demand, well, that was an unreasonable demand. And so because of that conflict, you did the opposite in order to help things and make a change. So was that conflict inherently bad then?
So I asked Facebook, what other crimes exist that should be reported to a corporation instead of to law enforcement?
Okay, so you actively sought to enhance that conflict with Facebook in order to create change, i.e., evolve. Are you not then addicted to quote unquote conflict? Like trying to stop pedophiles and trying to stop the platforms that enable them? Aren't you also seeking conflict? And again, I'm not criticizing the particular conflict he's seeking. I'm just trying to point out the inconsistency in his argument is all.
Now, of course, there aren't any. And that is when Facebook stopped talking to me completely.
I'm sure it was a terrible, terrible moment.
Now, I had never been in a conflict like this before.
Uh-huh.
It was just me, my computer, no money, against one of the world's largest, most influential tech companies.
And might I ask, was that a conflict worth pursuing? I have a feeling he would say yes, given that his ultimate goal was to try to protect children, which I completely and totally respect this guy for doing. But was that or was that not a conflict worth pursuing? Thank you, Point Curation. Why don't you have a seat right over there? I don't know. I could say some. I'm not going to say. Well, yeah, the Chris Hansen thing comes to mind, but thou doth protest too much. I won't say it hasn't occurred to me, but all the same, taking him at his word, I respect his crusade to stop pedophiles advertising themselves on social media. Absolutely.
And after fighting them for about a year with no chance of winning, a very wise mentor of mine suggested that I step away from the conflict, because he said conflict was just one option. Why not try compelling Facebook to change?
What? How? Okay. How is compelling Facebook to change not also inherently a conflict? I mean, something is in a state of X, and you want to change it into a state of Y. You are going to have to take such action actively, proactively, to alter the thing from X to Y. And what is the effort to do that called? It is a conflict of ideas, isn't it?
Now, I didn't even know what that meant.
Well, I know exactly what it means. You seem to be, I don't know, redefining reality for some reason. I don't even know what you're apologizing for at this point. Taking you at your word, you were doing an entirely noble thing. Why are you making it sound like you were doing something wrong?
Because I wanted to fight, and I wanted it to get nasty.
Okay, well, given the circumstances, I don't blame you.
The darkest motives of human nature inevitably seep into our lives.
Okay, hold on. It's one thing to feel angry And it's another thing to act on anger. Okay. That Facebook, and again, I'm taking him at his word. I don't know all of the chain of events or chronology of what happened here, but just taking him at his word. Facebook was not willing to cede to your warnings regarding pedophilia on their platform. Okay. Given the subject matter at hand, given the risks there were to innocent people in the process of this, I can understand getting angry. It is not a shameful thing to get angry. All right. And acting fueled by that passion is not necessarily bad. Acting just completely off kilter because of your anger, well, that's something different. Controlling your emotions versus letting your emotions control you. This is the classic long-term struggle of humanity ad infinitum. Why are you making this sound like your crusade, which isn't inherently a bad thing, is somehow reflective of the worst of humanity?
They remain woven throughout our delicate fabric of this vulnerable planetary community. Advanced science, communications, government cooperation, and commerce have unintentionally conspired in providing us with the sense that we have moved beyond chapters filled with senseless violence.
What are you talking about? We've moved beyond senseless violence. Las Vegas much, Sandy Hook much, Pulse nightclub much. I mean, Christchurch. What are you talking about?
Especially violence against children.
At what point did anybody think that violence against children no longer occurs? What are you talking about?
But no matter how civilized, evolved, or advanced we become, hatred peers in our windows.
Yes, there are some base human impulses that will always be with us because, spoiler alert, we're all still human.
The story of humanity is filled with men who come in the night, ending the world for mothers, fathers, and children.
Well, that's depressing.
The killers of dreams exist in all generations. It's one of our constants.
Okay. I mean, they are a small minority put up against the rest of us who are just living our lives and not meaning to hurt anyone. Okay.
In roughly the past century, the same human endeavors that carried us to new levels of knowledge, comprehension, and understanding also gave evil the diabolical tools to destroy millions of lives at a whim.
A locked door only keeps out an honest man. No matter the advancement, no matter the change in society or something, there's always going to be people that are out for themselves, to abuse others, to harm others, to take advantage of others. And I'll tell you what, the window dressing may change, okay? But the Nigerian prince scam on email is not a different scam from the Spanish prisoner from a century ago. Now look it up, the Spanish prisoner. It's the sort of the name of a scam. It's the same thing. Like I say, the window dressing changes. The mannequins stay the same.
Higher levels of technology don't equate to higher levels of wisdom or benevolence.
You're right. The tool is used by the person's hand. A hammer is either a tool of construction or it is a weapon of murder. You're correct. Good job.
Only to higher levels of ability, both wondrous and insane. Much of our current addiction to conflict is played out through our own personal worldview, our politics. And the harsh reality is that we're now behaving more like politics than like ourselves.
I don't even know what you're talking about. All politics is local. Anything that I think about the world can be put into a political frame if you work hard enough. Okay.
Ezra Klein, author of the book, Why We're Polarized.
Oh, Ezra Klein, he who owns Vox.com. All right.
Says, we're so locked into our political identities that there's virtually no candidate, no information, no condition that can force us to change our minds.
Speak for yourself, Ezra.
We will justify almost anything or anyone so long as it helps our side. And the result is a politics devoid of guardrails, standards, persuasion, or accountability.
Okay, and on that last point, I will at least agree with him in spirit. As an example, a current example for those of you listening in the future, you have Joe Biden, who has by the standards of #MeToo, a very credible allegation of sexual assault on the table. The same kind of thing that the left completely and totally condemned Brett Kavanaugh for, even in the absence of such, at least chronologically speaking, lined up proof of the complaint from Tara Reade in Biden's case and Christine Blasey Ford in Kavanaugh's case. The hypocrisy on display right now with those that had railed against Trump, railed against Kavanaugh, as immediately disqualifying them from public office, public service, anything, just simply on the basis of an allegation, are now letting an allegation slide in the case of Biden because Biden is politically expedient to try to get rid of Trump. So on that last point, I agree with Ezra Klein. It really is a matter. And this isn't just a thing on the left, you know. It's okay when the right does it, or it's okay when the left does it. These things are true whenever it's more politically expedient to post up your ideology over the other person. You're willing to look the other way so long as the person is on, quote unquote, your side. That is true. So on that one, I agree with Ezra Klein.
So this is identity politics at its most powerful and divisive.
Yes. To a certain extent, yes, I agree.
And it crosses over to identity media, identity entertainment, identity religion, and our virtual identity on social media.
Sure. On that, I also agree. Boy, you're a mixed bag, dude.
And isn't online conflict the absolute easiest? It has no consequences.
Really? Online conflict has no consequences? Are you kidding me?
Not many of us would take some of the harsh things we say and post online and say them to someone in person.
Well, that may be the case, but then anonymity allows for an unfiltered focus of one's thoughts. And anonymity is not inherently a bad thing. But sure, there are internet tough guys out there who are going to say something that they'd never say to someone's face. And are you telling me there are no consequences for online behavior? Really? Have you been awake since 2012 or thereabouts?
Our culture of conflict glorifies the act of destroying the very people whose cooperation we need.
Well, I thought there was no consequences to online behavior. Which is it?
The act of calling for reconciliation, conflict resolution, problem solving, and collaboration has become an absurdity. We label those who compromise in order to find the best solutions as weak and as traitors.
It depends on which community you're speaking of, but yes. I mean, there's this idea that civility is dead, etc. Well, I hope not. But yes, there is a problem right now with people being so polarized between one side and the other that any sign of disagreement, any sign of dissent from a particular ideology, thus makes that person suspect, thus makes that person an enemy of the virtual state. Yes, I do agree. There is a problem with the polarization of simple disagreement these days. No, I won't argue with you there. But that does not make conflict inherently wrong.
If they don't agree with us 100% all the time, then they are the enemy and the cause of all our problems.
I agree. That is indeed a problem with the modern discourse on social media and elsewise. I am on board with that notion. This guy really is a mixed bag of nuts.
No matter what they say or do, no matter what solutions they may bring, none of it matters. The only acceptable solution is their eradication.
Yes, okay, like I say, I agree. That is a mindset that I am completely against. So I agree with his complaint.
But all this doesn't mean that we're stuck in one position. Ezra Klein asks, aren't we better than this?
We as a collective, no. Individuals making choices, yes. But I mean, if he's looking at it from the broad strokes of everything, let's be honest. The loudest voices get the most attention. And the loudest voices are not inherently representative of the majority. They just happen to be the loudest voices. So, as cynical as I am, I still have faith that the quote-unquote silent majority are not behaving or thinking this way all the time. I would be sad to be proven wrong on that, but again, this is my tiny flicker of hope burning true.
We have the freedom to choose, don't we? We can go in any direction we want and to make every choice out of compassion instead of conflict.
Making a choice is inherently a conflict. Going against the grain is a conflict. Choosing to take the route of compassion versus neutrality is a conflict. I'm being very literal here, but then he hasn't specified what he's talking about. Conflict as a concept is a neutral concept. Until you know what one side of the conflict is and what the other side of the conflict is, it's very difficult to judge the morality or value of said conflict. A conflict is a conflict. In the course of human events, conflict is not inherently bad. Said that several times now. I'll probably say it several more.
So in time, I put aside the idea of fighting Facebook and searched for something that would compel them to take action and get rid of child abuse on their site.
And did this thing that you attempted to compel them with happen to cause a conflict?
So to protect these children, I decided to imagine compassion. And in that imagining, I began to think of the children first, the children in danger. I imagined giving them a voice and telling their stories of how they see the world.
So, okay, I'm curious, how did you do that?
My conflict with Facebook became a campaign led by Compassion for Children.
You changed tactics. That does not remove the conflict, does it?
And that made all the difference.
It didn't make any difference. Well, okay, maybe it made a difference to the outcome. Okay, but changing tactics doesn't remove the mechanisms of conflict. What are you talking about? Thank you, tall person. Hoy, all just got home from work and will watch in full later. Happy National Roast Leg of Lamb today. Or Roast Leg of Lamb today. National Roast Leg of Lamb Day, everybody. Roast Leg of Lamb Day. See, I trust that tall person is relaying actual, quote-unquote, official special days each time he does this. But some of them I really have to question. Is he just inserting fake ones just for fun? Because really, National Roast Leg of Lamb Day, that's very specific. Very specific.
By leading with compassion, I realized I needed to build an alliance with other people.
An alliance. An alliance to oppose the other side. Thus, a conflict. Tall person says, I am not. Okay, I was being facetious. I don't believe you're actually injecting fake ones. I was being facetious. It's just that sometimes it's hard for me to believe that a day has been set aside to eat roast leg of lamb. But this is the world we live in, so I'll take your word for it. I trust you, tall person. I really do.
Who may not agree with me on everything, but who cared about saving children.
Well, if they don't agree with you on anything, isn't that a conflict of ideas? Mm-hmm.
This idea would use technology and a message of compassion to rally people from around the world and compel Facebook to shield these kids from predators.
Did you use social media in your campaign by any chance? Thank you. Back to work, I have this conflict between working and not working. Yeah. Survival. It's a conflict. One that apparently we kind of did away with at some point in the recent past, according to our speaker.
After reporting my findings on causes.com.
Oh, you use the internet to report your findings? You mean to use social media? I thought social media was like bad.
I very quickly gained 100,000 followers.
Wow. That's impressive.
Then 500,000.
Wow. That's really impressive.
And eventually to this point, where we now have over 1.5 million people in over 100 countries demanding that Facebook protect children.
Well, hey, I mean, God, is it just me? Or did you use social media to promote, at least by your standard, an inherent good thing? And that 1.5 million people on social media are supporting you for your efforts and your ideas. So, was it a conflict worth pursuing? Might I ask?
With over 400,000 signatures on a petition to Mark Zuckerberg. Now with that, Facebook has implemented new software and AI tools to locate and remove these images. They've hired thousands of moderators to scour postings and reports, probably the worst and most psychologically damaging job in all of the tech sector.
Okay, and do you credit yourself and your initiative for having caused these changes to occur through your conflict with Facebook by any chance?
And they now have Facebook liaisons with local law enforcement in offices around the world.
Are you taking credit for that? I don't know if you're due credit for that, but are you taking credit for that?
They also established a way for law enforcement to quickly gain access to information when a child is in danger or suspected of being exploited. Now, this isn't to say that Facebook has solved the problem. They haven't. There's much more that can be done.
And so you continue your campaign, i.e. your conflict with Facebook?
But they've started because we compelled them to start.
Because you conflicted with their policies, and through that conflict, you enacted change. Right?
Now, on the momentum of what we did with Facebook, I wanted to address another injustice.
I am all ears.
Escort advertisements in the Tribune Company's advocate newspapers in Connecticut were proven by the U.S. Department of Justice to be selling human trafficking victims.
Okay, I heard about that. Sure.
Owned by the United States' oldest newspaper, these ads ran openly for decades and were a huge source of income for the publishers. For 5 years, I argued with them to end these ads.
You argued with them? You mean engaged in a conflict?
I even showed them similar ads that they had run announcing awards for the return of runaway slaves over 2 centuries ago.
Oh, come on. Right. Okay. I mean, it's the sort of antiquated version of looking up someone's old tweets and using them against them. Here's an ad your paper ran 200 years ago. You haven't changed a bit. Got it.
Both ads promoting slavery.
Not all escorts are slaves. Not all escorts are slaves. Some are independent working women or men, and that's the lifestyle and the business that they enjoy. I don't have any percentages on that, but I have known some in my life that were happy to do that work because they liked it. There's nothing shameful about it if you're doing it of your own volition and taking your own efforts to do so. But maybe I'm biased.
The publishers wouldn't budge. Again, it wasn't a fight I could win.
And yet you did something and something changed, and that wasn't a conflict.
I had to imagine a different way.
You had to change tactics. It doesn't change the conflict. It just changes the way you approach it.
One that led with compassion for those being sold for sex in the 21st century.
I mean, when you say look, the ends trying to end sexual slavery, human trafficking, child abuse, no disagreement for me on there. But you trying to couch your sense of quote unquote compassion as anything other than a different way of doing a giant and potentially justified guilt trip doesn't change the facts of the matter.
So I approached some of our lawmakers and explained the problem in the context of human rights.
Okay, so you went through the process that most people should when they're trying to change laws and policy. So you entered into a conflict with the status quo. Got it.
I wrote legislation that would make the publishers accountable if young people were found to be advertised in these listings.
And I applaud your efforts on that score.
It was a team effort. It took a lot of work, but my idea eventually became law.
Wow, so you engaged in a conflict and won, you say?
1 week after the law went into effect, the paper stopped running the ads.
Oh, so your conflict affected positive change, you say?
And within a year, the paper ceased publication altogether. Now imagine this. There are ways to win without fighting.
No. No, there are not. Now, of course, it depends on your definition of fighting, because that is a very ambiguous word. But you do not win a conflict without fighting for your side. In whatever method you choose, in whatever method is reasonable given the circumstances, you are fighting for your side. I will be amazed if anything he says next is going to change my mind on that point. But I am open to having my mind changed.
Without conflict.
No. I've said it too many times before.
In every moment, there is the possibility of a better future.
Okay, let me back up a bit. If he's talking about approaching situations and conflicts without rancor, without aggressiveness or nastiness or personal attacks and things like that, if that's what he's talking about, then I agree. There are ways you can approach conflicts without getting personal, without getting nasty. In fact, that is one of the things that I try to do with most of my videos. When I listen to a speaker, when I am taking on a subject, I critique the point and not the person. The ideas being presented, not the person presenting them. Unless the person makes themselves part of their argument in some fashion, I almost never comment on the person themselves. So yes, there is a way to approach conflicts without doing something that is nasty, violent, personal, insulting, etc. So yes, if by conflict he means rancor, I agree. However, he is not using the correct words if that is what he is going for.
But we get caught up, and we won't do what's necessary to make it a reality because the future doesn't ask anything of us today.
Really? The future doesn't ask anything of us today? Boy, oh boy, there's a whole bunch of parents I know with children that might disagree with you.
So I'm going to ask you. In a moment, close your eyes for just 5 seconds and imagine I've handed you a magic wand.
Oh boy. Okay, I'm imagining it. And a curvy redhead right here. Dude, I am so disappointed right now.
And when you do that, imagine you could take your magic wand and change just one thing in the world.
Okay, the one thing I change, the absence of a curvy redhead in my apartment. Nothing changed, dude.
What would it be?
I just told you.
Just 5 seconds. Imagine the first thing that comes to mind.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. God, I am such a horn dog.
Now.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Now, whatever that was for you, remember how important it is.
Oh, I'm remembering.
Because you can make it happen.
Well, I mean, I have in the past, but we were talking about a magic wand.
And in moments of conflict, imagine compassion.
I'm imagining a kind of passion. I don't know if it's compassion. Oh, maybe it is.
Delete conflict in your life, and you'll delete it in the world.
No. I do not want to delete conflict in my life. Conflict tests me. Conflict puts me on edge to try to better myself, to try to overcome problems. Conflict is not inherently bad. Rancor, acting on anger, violence without purpose, those things are bad, yes. But conflict is not bad.
We live in a continually evolving era in which everyone can be heard and make an extraordinary change if they build collaboration with anyone who wants to help.
If something changes, it means it has altered its state from the previous to the current. And if something has to intersect with the previous to make it the current, that is called a conflict.
Don't conflict or compete. Just
okay, no, don't conflict or compete. How do you make change if you do not have a competition of ideas? I mean, I'll say it again. If this guy has done even half of what he has said in regards to trying to end sex trafficking and abuse of children, etc., I will praise him to the end of my days. But the notion that you should avoid competition or conflict is ridiculous.
Just compel with compassion.
Compel with compassion is just a tactic. It does not change the mechanism of conflict.
And adopt a philosophy of no drama, Because whether or not you believe that everyone has a right to live their life the way they want to, they are going to.
I guess it depends under which particular governmental regime you're living in.
So don't waste your energy on circumstances that are beyond your control.
Don't waste my energy on circumstances that are beyond my control. You just gave us chapter and verse about how you knew you were not going to win the battles you were fighting. So you changed tactics to try to win the battles you were fighting. Which is it? Do we give up when everything seems insurmountable? Or do we try to solve the problems by rethinking our strategy? I'm getting some really mixed messages here.
Stand up and take action. Because if you don't, how will you feel in 10 years? How will you explain doing nothing to your children, to their children?
Well, I will tell them I was avoiding conflict. Right?
Or to yourself. We can't continue to live under these morbid dictates or be defined by those who seek to end all the possibilities of today.
You're telling us to stop with conflict. You are telling us to stop with possibilities. Because possibilities are the difference from the current, which would be a conflict between the status quo and our desires. And you're telling us to stop conflict. Do I need to hand this guy a dictionary? Seriously.
Or the promises of tomorrow. Instead, we can reject the fear and hatred of our enemies. In the face of all threats, you have the opportunity to engage with activists on the ground level and become an activist, whatever that means to you, all on your own.
Again, if you're talking about removing rancor and aggressiveness from trying to engage with someone with whom you disagree, then that I agree with. But that is not what you are saying. And it's very, very frustrating.
We need the change you will bring to the world. So you have a decision to make. Give into the fear and malevolence thrust upon you, or devote yourself to compassion. We break our culture's addiction to conflict by rejecting it.
Okay, if I had a copy of this guy's speech in the hindsight 2020 frame of reference, I would do a find and replace on every instance of the word conflict and replace it with rancor. And then it would make sense. Then this entire talk would make some kind of sense.
And healing our individual addiction to it. So let's step out of the fray and for a moment, imagine compassion. Because it's not the end of the world. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think I've stated and restated my observations about this more than enough. So now I'm going to turn to you, chat, my wonderful audience. Parody Bear, hello. Prosaic Dreams, hello. Jake Thompson, hello. Mr. Hugh, hello. Anal Lynn, hello. Renovaccio, hello. Anybody else that jumps out at me? Evil One, hello. Deck Tran, hello. Roasted Opinions, hello. Saniko, hello. All right. So on to you guys. If you have something you want to say, some observation you want to make, by all means, put in the chat now. I'll read a few before we wrap this up. Thank you, Jaeger Pony. Justice Department drops case against Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Really? Really? Wow, that'll be a subject for Lords of the Night tonight. Thank you, Jaeger Pony, so much. Somnambulation says, worst one yet, Scribelight. I mean, it all hinges on a single word. If he was saying, like I said, if he was saying rancor is the problem, in our interactions with one another, I could get on board with that notion. But that isn't what he was saying. So I don't know what exactly he was promoting. He doesn't seem like a unintelligent guy, so he must have very intentionally been using the word conflict. And thus the conflict in my own brain over trying to decipher what he was saying. Ryan Rawlings, hello. This guy wants us to ignore the fact that we are still governed by instincts. He wants us to no longer be human. Seemingly, he wants to deny an inherent mechanism of human evolution, cultural evolution, just evolution of any kind, conflict. There is a need for something, but it's not being taken, right? I mean, fulfilling a need by the population. The population is starving. I will resolve that conflict with food. I mean, thank you, Johnny Hellcat. Hi, I'm Smart Guy. Here's a bunch of big talk sounding words. Pedophilia is a bad thing. Hail Vice. Welcome to my TED Talk. Well, he was actually hailing Vox, or at least Ezra Klein, the owner of Vox. He didn't mention Vox in there, but there you go. But yeah, like I say, on the one hand, I can praise him to the end of days for working to try to get pedophiles out of using Facebook to promote their nasty horribleness, as well as, I mean, to a certain extent, trying to end human trafficking, such as is being done and has been done on Backpage.com, etc. It is difficult, and I'm not going to deny, it is difficult to suss out a independent contractor who isn't being victimized, that's a sex worker, and someone who's being taken advantage of as a sex worker. It's very difficult to suss that out. I'm not going to deny it. So a blanket trying to end that stuff, it harmed some innocent people and saved a bunch of, or at least helped to save a bunch of victims. But on this, so his efforts on those fronts, I applaud. But this particular argument of his completely bamboozled. But see, I don't think he's a bad guy. You know, I disagree with him. He has some good points. He has some incomprehensible points. So if he was promoting the idea of approaching conflicts without rancor to try to solve problems, I'm on board. But again, that's not what he was saying. Anal in Scribelight, sounds like he has never been in a fight. I was just attacked by dogs yesterday. Well, obviously, if you tried to defend yourself, you were engaging in violent conflict, which is, you know, just some evil aspect of you being a human, and you really should reform yourself, Anal in. You really should, because conflict, you're addicted. You need to break that addiction. Jake Thompson, I don't think he means what he is saying. He's using language and topics that will influence young activists to trying and convince them to change tactics. Maybe. It's difficult to tell who his audience was for this. Without something more specific, maybe I can assume so, or he was hoping that he was sort of, by using such a large umbrella term as conflict, it would make more of an impact. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard for me to tell whether this was an intentional choice on his part, or if he honestly, in his core, has a misunderstanding of the words he is using. Assassin of the Gray, hello, Scribelight. What many people seem to not recognize is the very concept of war is the ultimate extension of the self-preservation instinct. Well, yeah, I mean, war is, as you know, has been often stated, the extreme end of politics. Like the most extreme expression of politics is war. Also, war is the failure of communication. As long as we're talking, we're not fighting, is the thing I'd prefer we do, but sure. Thank you, Pikal, the Driving Ape Man. Next time, Shakes Fist Hippopotamus. Yes, Shaking Fist Hippopotamus. Parody Bear, conflict, imperative, reevaluating. Most efficient solution is to not play. How about a nice game of chess? Oh, classic. Some emulation again. Scribelight, after this one, we just sit back with Dogcat Fox, have a pepper jack, and watch Hunt for Red October there at the moon base. Man, I tell you. Oh, but Hunt for Red October, There's nothing but conflicts in that movie between the US and the Soviets and Ramius and the Politburo and Ryan and the administration. God, it's so many conflicts. Renovescio, he has a very different understanding of the word conflict to most. Conflict is often a needed way to prevent people needing to become violent. Conflict is inevitable. Combat is optional. Max Lucado. Conflict. Okay, here's a conflict for you. I come upon two people about to throw fists at each other, if I can pronounce words after one pepper jack, because I'm a lightweight. If I attempt to intervene to offer a diplomatic solution so that things don't come to actual violence, is my compassion not coming into conflict with violent aggression? So should I avoid that conflict? Should I try to cleanse conflict from my senses? I should just let that happen because, I don't want to be involved in conflict. Like I say, his message could have been better with a different word choice. Roasted opinions. I'm inclined to believe that this guy has good intentions and a poor concept of reality. I think he has a poor concept of vocabulary. I'm not sure he has a poor concept of reality. I mean, obviously his moral compass is on the right track if what he is saying about his past efforts is true. I don't argue that at all. But his vocabulary is completely off. Thank you, Devil Fruit Zero. So are you scribe lightweight then? That might be one way of putting it. I'm about a 2-drink maximum on any given day. I am a cheap date. All you curvy redheads out there who aren't currently in my apartment because my magic wand didn't work. Boy, there's a whole bunch of ways that could be interpreted. But yeah, sure, scribe lightweight. I admit it. I admit it. I'm a very poor alcoholic. Let's put it that way. And prosaic dreams, man against self, man against society, man against higher power. I learned that freshman year of high school. Yeah. Where do stories come from? Where do interesting things happening to us come from? The last story you told someone that had a laugh at the end or a holy shit at the end, I guarantee you somewhere in there was a conflict, was a difficulty, was something running up against another, either in idea or in action. That's conflict. That's life. Life is conflict. Breathing in oxygen is a battle against death, is a conflict against extinction. And take that example, extrapolate it out to everything that we do to persist ourselves in life, and you'll find a conflict. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this bewildering, maybe good, but entirely confusing argument, such as it was. I hope you found it entertaining, perhaps enlightening in some fashion. I don't know. Why do I do this? What is the purpose of my doing these shows? I'm in conflict with my motivation. And yet I will continue to do them because, truth be told, they are helping to fight back the monotony and the boredom of being locked up in my apartment every day. Oh, wait, fight back? Oh, no, my addiction to conflict. Everyone, I thank you again for joining me. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your generosity. And thank you, Pinkal, the Driving Ape Man. Breathing is an involuntary conflict. And yet, still a conflict. Everyone, take care. I'll see you tonight on Lords of the Night on Satsu's channel. Yes, we're doing Satsu's channel again because it was just a switch between him and Monkey on Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we'll talk more then, probably about Michael Flynn being effectively, I guess, exonerated? I don't know. We'll find out. Take care, everyone. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.